Saskatchewan just added more muscle to its fight against Ottawa's national price on carbon. Today, Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced his province will join Saskatchewan's legal battle, and there's a chance other provinces could follow suit. Quebec, BC, and Alberta already have carbon pricing plans in place. Ontario did until Doug Ford became premier. Many other provinces and territories have announced their plans, but some, like Manitoba and New Brunswick, don't appear to meet the federal government's bar. Saskatchewan and PEI aren't planning to impose a carbon price, and Saskatchewan is challenging the federal government's authority to do so. And now Ontario is joining in that fight. Will other provinces follow? And if they win, what will these provinces do instead to cut emissions? Joining me now from St. Andrews, New Brunswick, is Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe. Thank you very much for joining us, Premier. To jump right in, you've been looking for allies in this legal fight against the carbon tax, and now you have quite a big one in Ontario. How do you see your chances in convincing others to join?
Well, we've always felt our chances with respect to this whole conversation around climate change and how we address climate change. We've always felt that we're on the correct path around, talking about the innovation and the opportunities we have to actually reduce emissions, as opposed to just tax the jobs and the industries that we have in the province of Saskatchewan. You're right. We appreciate the support of Ontarians through their premier this morning, Premier Doug Ford, as he has agreed to intervene in the reference case that we have filed to the Court of Appeal in the province of Saskatchewan. And we're looking for a positive outcome sooner rather than later from that court to ensure that we can move forward on the conversation that we should be having, and that is with respect to what we can do in Saskatchewan and Canada and what we can do to export the knowledge and innovation we have with respect to the sustainable industries that we have in this nation to other areas of the world and really make an impact on what is a global challenge.
So what are you and Premier Ford going to do to try and woo more premiers over to your side?
Well, I think there's a number of premiers that either are looking at the court case that we've put forward or the reference case that we've put before the Court of Appeal in Saskatchewan at either intervening in that case or at least watching that case very closely. As I indicated this morning, we have a situation now where we have a couple of provinces that will likely be in compliance, 2, maybe 3 provinces. We have 2 provinces that are now in court.
Not to jump in and interrupt, but who specifically? Sure. Which other provinces are specifically interested?
Look at any of the provinces that aren't going to meet the federal backstop, which is the majority of the provinces and territories here in the nation of Canada. 2, possibly 3 provinces with their plans are actually going to meet that backstop. Many of the provinces have put forward a credible plan without a carbon tax or with a reduced rate that will actually have, in many cases, a larger impact on actual emissions reductions than what a carbon tax will. We've always said that a carbon tax is a flawed policy. It doesn't work. It doesn't reduce emissions. It reduces jobs in our communities across the nation.
Can you specifically name any premiers that you've spoken with at this meeting that are saying, yes, they're going to join your legal fight other than Ontario? Have any other premiers committed to you they're going to do that?
I've spoken to a number of premiers with respect to the validity of a carbon tax, explained in detail the question that we have posed before the Court of Appeal in the province of Saskatchewan. We leave the decision to them on whether or not they actively want to intervene. We also leave the decision to them and to all the jurisdictions, as all First Ministers agreed to in the Vancouver Declaration, on how they can address climate change or emissions and sequestration in their province to satisfy the agreement that they signed in the Vancouver Declaration a couple of years ago.
Now, Federal Environment Minister Catherine McKenna was on our show yesterday, and I want you to listen in. We've got a clip from her for what she had to say.
The Ford government really doesn't appear to have a climate plan, which means they don't have a plan for the economy. The environment and the economy go hand in hand in the 21st century, and we need to be taking action on both. So I asked them, what is their climate plan? And I think we're all waiting.
Premier, from your perspective, does the minister have a point? And do you have any concerns about joining forces with a province that doesn't appear to have a climate plan?
I find those comments actually highly ironic, because Saskatchewan is putting forward a very credible climate change plan, a plan of prairie resilience that will have actual emissions reductions in our province. It's a plan that has been put together with industry involvement, and it's a plan that will have far greater far greater impact than a carbon tax ever would in the province of Saskatchewan. We have a new provincial government in the province of Ontario, and you know, as they speak with Ontario industries and Ontario businesses, they will continue with the efforts that they have made in that province into the future. And they have made significant efforts in reducing coal-fired power over the last number of years. And you know that as the new government continues to collaborate with the industries there, they will not only be competitive from an affordability perspective in the products that they sell all over the world, but they will continue to be sustainable, as all Canadian industries are. So the comments made by the federal minister are not credible to where Ontario has been, are not credible to where Ontario is going under this government, and are not credible to any provincial effort that has been put forward. It would do the federal minister well to take a step back, look at the actual plans from a science-based perspective, and accept those plans that are actually putting forward real emissions reductions, as opposed to this Made in Ontario carbon tax plan, or scheme, if you will, that really doesn't work, doesn't recognize the variability in industries that we have across this nation, and it doesn't recognize the great diversity that we have across this nation.
Canada's ambassador to Washington, David McNaughton, is at this Council of Federation meeting, and he provided you an update on trade. But I'm curious, did uranium come up in that conversation, given the new American investigation into whether there should be tariffs on imported uranium?
Yes, Saskatchewan, when you talk of Canadian uranium, you're essentially talking of uranium coming out of the province of Saskatchewan. We've talked with our industry. Our Minister of Export and Trade, Jeremy Harrison, has been in touch with Minister Freeland's office, as well as industry representatives in our area. And we will continue to advocate on behalf of that. Canada is not a trade risk in any way. We are a reliable and risk-free supplier of products like steel, like uranium, agricultural products, autos, with the U.S. and we'll continue to advocate on that behalf, and I think we'll continue to advocate as premiers to the strong synergistic trade relationship that we have had with the United States of America, and that includes products such as uranium. It must be noted as well, as uranium not only is an emissions-free product, but it is also being mined in northern Saskatchewan. Cameco, Areva, other companies involved in that industry have worked very hard with the Aboriginal and Northern engagement of their workforce, at times being 50% of their workforce coming from Aboriginal or Northern communities. And that has been through the good effort of the industry in that particular area. I believe actually in the nation of Canada, they are the highest employer of an Aboriginal workforce percentage-wise, and that's something we can be very proud of in that industry, and we'll continue to advocate for the safe supply to the U.S. as well as other areas in the world.
Premier, we're out of time here, but really quickly, in a word, how would you sum up the impact of tariffs on uranium? How would it affect your province?
Tariffs on any product, including uranium, are not beneficial to any of the importing nation or the exporting nation. They will be a further strain, if you will, on an already strained resource economy in the province of Saskatchewan. We'll work very closely with Minister Freeland, as well as our federal government, and we'll also be engaging with our United States counterparts as well to advocate on behalf of that industry and the northern workforce that it employs.
Thank you very much, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, for joining us.
Thank you, Katie.